Absolute Superman number 7 from DC Comics tips into body horror territory when we learn the sad, sadistic fate of the being that would eventually become Brainiac. Let's talk about it in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. Boy, it's a bad week for DC. I don't know what's going on with these creators, but they are really not taking their job seriously. Or at least if they're taking it seriously, they've got some wildly misplaced expectations about where these series need to go to really hook the reader and keep them hanging on. Jason Aaron has a concept here in Absolute Superman number 7, and he reimagines Brainiac as a sadistic, disturbed being with a lot of creep factor in a good way. Sadly, the story just isn't going anywhere, because nearly half of this series so far, and we're at issue number 7, tells you nothing about Superman. But let's go in for some of the positives first, starting with what's great about Absolute Superman number 7. If you wanted a different kind of Brainiac from the Absolute universe that's still intimidating and dangerous, Jason Aaron has a reimagined concept here that's a worthy approach to the villain, making him both familiar and new at the same time. You could imagine this Brainiac engaging in the most horrific forms of abuse and torture to get his way, to extract information, and to basically create an oppressive sense of fear in everyone he encounters, which makes him a significant threat to the Man of Steel. This is an intimidating Brainiac, and that's a good thing. We want to see new twists, but still have that same villainous feel. So what's not great about Absolute Superman number 7? It's okay to have a villain who's a significant threat to the Man of Steel, but we don't know anything about the Man of Steel. Jason Aaron wasted so much time in the earlier issues building out Krypton and building out the world of Earth and how the Lazarus Corporation is oppressing everybody and doing all kinds of really nasty corporate shenanigans stuff. Now he's spending too much time building out the villains and the side characters. Readers want to get to know the Man of Steel through his decisions and his actions and the things that he thinks and the things that he says and his attitude, his personality, and his behavior. That's how you get to know the character. That's how you get invested in his journey. This is Absolute Superman's journey. How can they do that if Jason Aaron focuses on everyone and everything else but the one character who matters, Superman? And so when I say this title is poorly paced and has got focus in all the wrong directions, I mean that in a pragmatic way, because we just received the ICV2 title rankings for April of 2025, and of all the Absolute titles, Absolute Superman is the one that's taking the biggest hit in terms of sales, falling now outside the top 25. So this is by far the worst performing Absolute title. If Jason Aaron doesn't correct his focus and does it really quick, Absolute Superman may be the first Absolute title to actually hit the chopping block. And I think nobody wants to be the first to go, but he's risking it, and that's not a good thing. Now, before you think I'm getting too down on this book, there is a saving grace here, and it's Rafa Sandoval's art. He delivers in the best way possible by giving you a character villain, in this case Brainiac, who is creepy, disturbing, built around this concept of zombified type of body horror, and it looks great. The Brainiac that you're used to is pristine, ultra clean, very calculating, very mechanical. That's what we're used to. But here, he's a collection of flesh and prosthetics and programming circuitry and wires sticking out of his head, and the brain is exposed, and it's really gross and disgusting. Sandoval leans on that zombie-like aesthetic to make Brainiac gross and creepy, so it works out pretty well. Before we dig into the meat of this issue, let's recap what happened last time in Absolute Superman number 6. We catch up kind of with Kal-El as he's traveling through space after Krypton was destroyed, and he's trapped in isolation in his ship. Sol, the AI, is keeping him company, but basically he's by himself for about 18 months. Eventually, he crash lands in Kansas at the very last minute when he's so depressed and so despondent, he's thinking about taking his own life. The ship crashes, but Sol is out of power, so it powers down, and Cal can't communicate because he doesn't speak English, of course. He finds the Kents, they take care of him for a while, they put up with all his craziness because being exposed to the yellow sun and the atmosphere, all his powers start developing even while he's sleeping, and he just makes a bloody mess of everything. Eventually, Sol does get repowered. He learns to speak English, he communicates with the Kents, and they're building a bond there. Unfortunately, that whole thing is messed up when a nosy neighbor calls the Lazarus Corporation saying, hey, the Kents have an illegal alien on their farm. It's not really well explained or bore out how he knew that just from seeing some guy from a distance, but that's the way it ended. The Kents are taken away, the farm is left in disrepair, and Cal is now on the run. Alright, so let's get into the guts, no pun intended, of Absolute Superman number 7. We begin with the group calling itself the Omega Men infiltrating a compound in Nevada where they believe the Brainiac server farm that powers the Lazarus Corporation's AI is located. The Omegas believe that they can shut down the Brainiac AI if they destroy the data center. Suddenly, the group is decimated by advanced weaponry that shrinks their skin, turns bones to mush, and balloons up their organs and their limbs. And then we find out that Brainiac is not some computer-generated AI, it's an actual being. He kills 3 of the 4 Omegas and takes the last one hostage for questioning and, we'll call it experimentation. In a flashback, we see that Brainiac started out as one of hundreds or thousands of different Brainiacs. In this case, his designation number is 419,732 as part of what they call the Brainiac Collective. His purpose? He's just brought online to shovel piles of discarded Brainiac drone bodies into an incinerator. 137 years later, after doing nothing but that and never even leaving the incinerator room, the discarded bodies stopped falling from the disposal chute. Brainiac 419,732 leaves the incinerator room for the first time, finds all the fellow Brainiacs aboard the ship he's on, including the captain, are dead. The captain in particular is dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and he decides, well, I'm just going to take over the ship and I'm going to be the top Brainiac. And then we switch back to the present, and the time-ravaged and really unstable Brainiac is tearing his hair out, figuratively because he doesn't have any hair, over the existence of this human with superpowers. It tortures the captured humans and Brainiac clones to find a measure of peace because it's showing signs of being sadistic and into really torturous pain and what have you. It even resorts to smashing and stomping on shrunken alien cities stored in its lab. Finally, Brainiac 419,732 sends a signal to the ruling Brainiac Collective Council. So apparently, Brainiac is not an individual, it's a race of beings. And he asks them for help identifying the super being based on a particle of the red sand from Superman's cape. One of the council members identified the sand as Kryptonian, matching the red sand to a sample of meteorite one of the Brainiacs discovered during a survey mission to the exploded remnants of that part of space. The issue ends with Brainiac completing cybernetic enhancements to Peacemaker Smith, presumably to turn him into Metallo, in preparation for a trip to Kansas, along with a sample of the meteorite that one of the other Brainiacs found, which looks a lot like a shard of kryptonite. Alright, final thoughts. What do we think about Absolute Superman number 7? It turns the secret origin of the Absolute Brainiac into a sadistic, disturbed cyborg hellbent on learning Superman's secret. The highlight of this issue really is Rafa Sandoval's body horror art, which is great, as usual, and Jason Aaron's twist on the classic Superman villain presents him as a dangerous threat. That said, the series is still spending way too much time on world building and backstory, putting the main character, Superman, on the back burner. Again, I mean, it's too much and it's too far along to be at issue 7, and we still know nothing about the present-day Superman. It's unacceptable. Therefore, Absolute Superman number 7 from DC Comics earns a 6 out of 10. I'm being generous because I like the concept of Brainiac and I like the art, but the story, man, is just not going anywhere, and the sales show it. But you know what? Maybe I'm just being too hard on this series. Maybe I'm just not appreciating the slow burn and the simmering that's going on here. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments, and I want to hear why you think this series is great if you do. So, thank you very much for joining, and stay tuned through the outro for more reviews just like this one.